Welcome to Builder Bob Behind the Scene. Now we're going to take a look at cameras that we've used. This is one of the smallest cameras. This is what we started with. In fact, this is not the original. This is a Canon Vixia 600, an R600. The 500s, the 600s, the 700s, they're all pretty much the same camera. The nice thing about it, it's a great camera by itself. You can hold it in your hand. You can also plug it in with a switch. All you need is a decimator MD-HX converter to plug it in with to the switch, and you're good to go. And you can go in, set it up, tell it don't display whatever text you see on the screen, make sure HDMI out is on, you're good to go. Depending on how many cameras you're going to start with, this is a great place to start. If you can buy these for $300, that's about regular price. The only reason to buy the other models within that variety, if they're less expensive. You don't need a camera that's got memory in it. I prefer a camera that I put my own memory in it. When we started with these, we were 64 gig sticks. When we progressed up to better cameras, we put in better memory, faster memory, higher capacity memory. And the current cameras we use now, we have 128 gig sticks. But this is a little Canon Vixia R600. It's a great camera if that's where you need to start. If you can buy these on sale for $200, they're a great deal. But when you start moving up and you want better quality, for example, the video I'm shooting this right now, the close-ups you're seeing, this is done on an XA35. And the one you're looking at me on in the big screen is a Canon G40. The difference in all three of these, there's a big difference in price, but there's a big difference in quality of the video shoot. But if you need to get some video started, this is a great place to start for $200. Because when you figure every camera you buy like this, you've also got to have a converter. So that doubles the price of a camera. $300 for a converter, $200 to $300 for a camera. That's a $500 or $600 camera. That's something you have to think about, because you've got to get it into the switch. That's got to be SDI. No two ways about it. When you're doing anything with HDMI, you've got one input, and that can be used for a computer that's close, but you're bound by the limits of that cable. And I've used Redmere cables, success, failure. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Everything you do needs to be SDI. You'll simplify your life. So that's one option for a camera. And that's a Canon Vixia 600. Another option that we moved up to, and this one also has a Kessler quick release plate on it, which we now use quite a bit. But this is the Canon G40. Nice camera, I love it, but it still has the same issue where you've got to have a converter to plug it in. So you take the price of that camera plus the converter. So if you start with this camera, the converter you use will work with this camera. And you have the same issues with both of these cameras. You have to go into the menu, tell it that you don't want to see the on-screen display, number one. And number two, you have to tell the camera to stay on so when it's not recording, it doesn't shut off. Otherwise, that could be an issue. So that's two camera options. So we started with these. We had 4 of these. Then we went to this camera. We have 2 of these that we now shoot with. And then we went to the XA35. XA35, bang for the buck, love it. You can say it's an expensive camera, but it's an inclusive camera, because all we have to do, we can shoot with these with the switch or by themselves. Shooting with the switch, sometimes we'll have the audio on, usually not. For example, I'm using audio from our audio rack that's mic'd in through this mixer. Input number 1, spread out to 2 inputs. But you have the same issue with this camera. You've got to go in, make sure SDI this time is turned on. You've got to make sure your on-screen display is off, and number 3, make sure the camera stays on so while you're shooting, the camera doesn't shut down. The great thing about this, these cameras use the same batteries. The bad thing about it, we need a battery plate because these batteries don't last long enough. With the XA35, it really sucks the juice through the SDI when you're using it. It's just it's a beast on power, but it's a great camera. I like it by itself, and I like it with the switch. Now we have, this is a Sennheiser, the Sennheiser MKE 600 mics mounted on these. So when I use these by themselves, all I have to do, this is ready to go out of the case. All I have to do is put this cable on, and I'm in business. Now in our third video we're going to take a look at, I'm going to show you the big difference that I don't know if anybody's ever done, but a comparison that I haven't seen. What's the big difference in the G40 versus the XA35? So I'm going to lay the equipment out and show you what it takes for this camera to equal this camera.